What's going on, guys? It's Adam P and welcome back. This is it. We are going to rank the entire summer transfer window for Newcastle now. Over £250 million spent on 6 players and a window that's had a lot of ups and a lot of downs, but just how good actually was Newcastle United's transfer window? We're here today to get through it all. Of course, if you guys are new around here, make sure I get down there, hit that subscribe button. We move on now. We look ahead to the season and we look ahead to what Newcastle will now do with all these players in, and we're going to see just how well Eddie Howe and the players can do in the Champions League. I can't wait for those, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on it. Starting off, let's just get through that individual now. I promise you guys on this channel, unless there is a groundbreaking, unless there's a breaking headline story about Alexander Isak, I can assure you going forward, we are not going to talk about this guy. He's a Liverpool player now. It's over. It's done with. And I promise you all, give it a few days, let it simmer down, and news will go quieter and quieter, and then nothing. It will be gone. I can promise you guys now, and I assure you, future videos, yes, of course, I discuss Newcastle United news, but unless there is something immediate or groundbreaking about Newcastle or Gordon Isak, we're not going to talk about him. However, we are ranking the transfer window, and just before we get into what I believe about him during the window, he has released a statement on his Instagram post. I am not even going to read it. It doesn't deserve to be read, and to be honest towards the player, it doesn't matter what he says, the damage is done. He could put anything on that Instagram post, but would fans change their opinion on him? No. Actions speak louder than words. That was my reply to him. That was my straight up reply to Isak, because that's exactly how you would describe that post. And believe it or not, it's actually 94% AI generated, which means there's a high chance this guy hasn't even wrote the statement. He's either been sent it from someone else, or he's even just used something like GPT just to sort it out, which is just astonishing. But honestly, it doesn't matter what he said. I'm not even going to rant. I'm not even going to moan on about it. It's done. It is what it is. However, his agent has decided to mouth Newcastle United off on TalkSport just before he was asked to come on TalkSport, declined to come on, but responded by saying, the one thing I'm happy about is the fact that we don't have to deal with them anymore. Who do you think you are, by the way? You've been banned for about 4 different football clubs now. You've obviously done illegal stuff in the past, and let's be honest, have you exactly been behaving well during this transfer saga? No. And I would say this is the biggest positive before we even got in anything, the fact that we don't have to work with this agent ever again. There you are. There's the door. Get out. And that's all I've got to say towards him. And just like that, we mentioned the transfer side of it now. Of course, sought for a British transfer record, £125 million from Liverpool. However, that has been bumped up to £130 million because Newcastle has refused to give Alexander Isak his loyalty bonuses, which adds up to around £5 million. So you're talking £130 million solely off that sale before you even look to invest that money. The highest possible value you could have got for a British transfer record. You can't complain about that. And would you say now it is a positive that Isak is out in Newcastle? 100%. And as for our outgoings, of course, Callum Wilson also joins him out on a free at the start of the transfer window. A player who, in my opinion, could have still been kicking around if, in hindsight, Newcastle knew Isak would have been 100% out this summer. I reckon Wilson maybe just about could have still been at the football club. I will state, however, it is still a positive he's gone, even on a free. I'm going to be honest, he's just not as good as he was a couple of years ago. I've got no issue with Newcastle letting Wilson go, and deep down, and that's an opinion I haven't changed on him. Also joined Wilson on a free. Isaac Hayden, believe it or not, has only just left Newcastle this summer. A player who's actually terminated his contract 12 months early. He could have stayed at Newcastle. He could have just kept lingering around, earning what is, I think it's around 50 grand a week. It's just a crazy wage that Mike Ashley offered him in a 6-year deal. He's decided now is the correct time to leave. Contract's been paid off. He can do whatever he wants now. And a player I've got no animosity towards. He's got offered a ridiculous contract from Mike Ashley. He's took advantage of it. Can you blame the guy? I don't feel like we can. Of course, Martin de Braga has left to go to Burnley for an undisclosed fee. I would imagine maybe £1 to £2 million. He's a 36-year-old goalkeeper now. And for me, I know he was good last season for Newcastle, but again, he's 36 years old. I'm very happy with the goalkeeper situation now. Pope's still number 1, but a very good number 2 behind him, waiting and sniffing out that opportunity to come in. We'll talk a bit more about Ramsdale shortly, but Martin de Bradker, of course, has left for an undisclosed fee. Sean Longstaff has left in the region of around £15 million. And to be fair to Sean, put in a top performance against Newcastle a few days ago, and a player who is going to be good for Leeds. Longstaff, of course, is also a pure profit sale, so even though £15 million may not sound like the biggest sum of money in the world, it's actually a lot more because he's a homegrown player and because we've never bought the guy from somewhere. All pure profit and the PSR, healthy and good sales. And my only, perhaps, I wouldn't say negative, but the sale that Newcastle really could have done with was Yosula, especially as getting quoted at around £30 million at Frankfurt with a buyback clause. That would have been an astonishingly good sale, and that didn't happen in the end. And I wouldn't say it's negative because you've got a third striker in there, and especially when Johan Isak goes out on the African Cup of Nations, striker there, ready to come in. But if I had my choice now, I would have certainly took that £30 million with a buyback clause, if possible. Hasn't happened, but I'm not going to bash a club for that. A bit last minute, we need to get Johan Whistle over the line. We've done it. We've still got Osula here, and he still has time to develop and become a good player at Newcastle. So I've not got any negatives with that not being a steal in the end. And as for signings that have came into Newcastle, we'll start off Anthony Elanga, £55 million from Nottingham Forest. Our first sign of the window came in, especially in my opinion, that was the most important area before we even talk about anything else. How many years now have we neglected not signing a right attacking player? I know Elanga so far hasn't properly kicked on for Newcastle. A player that will with a striker up front. I'm telling you now that we've got a focal point up front, this is a player I've got a lot of confidence in. I can't wait to see this guy once he's able to fully be invested, fully be able to kick on for Newcastle. I just think he's had a bit of a rocky start. Pace is exceptional, just needs to work on the end product a bit, but there was a player in there. There's a top quality player in there in terms of players I've seen. Imagine, by the way, Elanga, Gordon, Wissa front three. The amount of pace there is frightening. Teams will panic a lot against that, and Anthony Elanga is someone that once he has time to develop and be properly embedded into Newcastle's team, he's going to be one for the future. He's going to be a sign that will be here long term, and I can't wait to see once he properly kicks on what he can do. £55 million is an insane amount of money, but I will also say, especially when you see like Brian and Bruno, £70 million, when you see the names floating around, it seems about right for the Premier League prices these days. That's just the normality now, and even though it's a huge amount of money, I think all of these players from the Premier League are just a huge amount of money now. Next up, of course, Aaron Ramsdale came in on a loan signing with an option, not an obligation, an option to buy for around £15 to £20 million. And I have to say, for not getting James Trafford, he's the next best thing Newcastle could have realistically got within that short time frame. Someone who I think has a lot of bad rep, to be honest. I think Ramsdale has a lot of negativity surrounding his name, which is quite unjust because I know he's been relegated a few times, but you can't blame that all on the goalkeeper. I mean, what do you expect Ramsdale last season with the Southampton defence in front of him? It's the worst defence in the league. Of course, he's going to struggle. Of course, Southampton are going to concede a lot of goals. But Ramsdale, with a good back line in front of him, which Newcastle has, by the way, he has a point to prove. And I think there's a lot of fire inside of him that's going to prove to these doubters, it's going to prove to the people out there that are saying this guy gets every club relegated, this guy's not good enough. He is an international player for a reason. He was with the last international team at England. So when you look at this player and what he can do, I think he's a good player and someone long term I think is number one. Once Nick Pope drops off, once Nick Pope has a bad performance in there, Ramsdale is ready to come straight in. He's an eager goalkeeper with a point to prove, and especially with his footwork, I think long term is going to oversee Nick Pope, and I think Nick Pope will then become a number two or will be so elsewhere. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. Option to buy, even in a worst case scenario. If it doesn't work out, we don't have to sign him. So I have to say it's a brilliant sign for Newcastle. Malik Chow is signed from AC Milan around the £35 million region, and we needed a centre half, especially with Byrne and Shaw both being in their 30s now, and that's before we even look at the likes of Botman, who has started to pick up a few injuries. Just need a new centre half in there. Doesn't have to be someone ready to play straight away, with someone that is willing and is going to develop well and become, ideally, towards the back end of this season, a potential starter for Newcastle. I don't know an awful lot about him. Only seen bits and bobs with Newcastle so far, so I can't make a rash or strong judgment in yet. But certainly a player. He's ready to go. Let's see what he can do, and let's see during the season whether or not £35 million is going to be a good purchase for him. Jacob Ramsey for just under £40 million. Villa forced to sell him because of the PSR restrictions and also forced to let him go at most likely a cheaper rate than what they would have liked to have done. However, we know, they know, PSR is a killer and Villa have sought him to Newcastle in order to be able to help themselves long term. Ramsey clearly upset to be leaving Aston Villa, but a player that's quite dynamic, can play in the middle, can play out wide, and adds real squad depth to the team. He is effectively a Sean Longstaff replacement, but I wouldn't say he is. I think he's a lot better than Sean Longstaff, and especially behind our midfield three now. Ramsey as your first option on the bench alongside Joe Willock and Lewis Miley. Not bad options at all. And once you get those Champions League matches and once you get those games where you're playing 3 times a week, injury suspensions pick up. I feel like maybe if I could have done it ideal in the transfer window, I would have let Longstaff and Willock go and I would have brought Ramsey in and a second midfielder to really be able to improve Newcastle's squad. But I certainly wouldn't say Ramsey's a negative to that. I think he's a brilliant sign. I just felt like deep down Newcastle probably needed 2 midfielders, or at least after signing Jacob Ramsey, just to get someone in on loan like a Kobbie Mainoo or someone else, just to get him in on loan, just to make sure we've got enough work there to be able to do. But again, no injuries at the minute. All our players are fine. Once those injuries and suspensions come in, though, I feel like our midfield still might potentially be our weakest point if we have a bad string of luck. Of course, our record-breaking signing, 6'6" striker Nick Woutemaere coming in. He is effectively the Isak replacement now. Of course, you have Wissa and Woutemaere, so you've got the dynamic link of having the pairing. It's almost like Defoe and Crouch, actually, the height difference between the two. And especially now, you do have these two playing alongside each other. It's going to be a real joy to watch. But considering how tall he is, his height's almost deceiving for the kind of player that he is. You would imagine a 6'6" striker might be clumsy on the ball, might not be the best technically on the ball. That's not the case. This player is the completely opposite. He's actually quite good technically on the ball. Reminds me a lot of Dimitar Berbatov when he's able to swerve the ball, he's able to flick the ball around. He's quite a confident player with the ball at his feet. And that's exactly the sort of striker Newcastle needs. We need a striker that can drive the ball. And we need a striker that's not a feeder striker, but instead a striker who is able to physically move with the ball, to be able to play quick, fluid, one-touch passes and be able just to really get amongst the back line. And someone who, if he came in by himself, I would have been like, that wasn't the right call. But the fact he's came in with a second striker who's more experienced than him, perfect. I actually think it's the perfect dynamic. And as far as the options go, I reckon, considering the time we had left in the transfer window and considering all the noise has been going on, at that moment of time, the best possible sign Newcastle could have made, we actually done. And it was done straight away, nice and quick, few hours. He was already in Newcastle doing his medicals, the sort of character you want as well. And speaking of strikers, Johan Wissa then joined him alongside £55 million and around £70 million for the two strikers. Crazy money, especially in Wissa's point of view. Almost 29 years old now. I would argue financially a panic buy in terms of how much money's went down, but I wouldn't say it's a panic buy because it's exactly the player Newcastle wanted. We wanted them all summer long. We've just panicked with the amount of money down. We threw serious money at Brentford just to get this player in on time. And this is a player as well who drove 250 miles through the middle of the night. This wasn't confirmed at the time, by the way. He actually drove through the night all the way up, stopped at the service stations and doing whatever he needed to do just to be in Newcastle in the morning in case a deal was agreed. He actually prepared himself in Newcastle, setting himself up so Brentford could approve the deal in time and so he could join Newcastle. That's the effort and that's the mentality he's done to get himself to Newcastle, and he's, in my opinion, deserved under my 9 shirt. Some people might not like that, but I have to say, he's shown me the mentality, the heart and the desire to wear that shirt, and I feel like he's earned the opportunity. And despite him being a lot smaller than the other striker, I have to say he's also quite good in the air. He leaps well, heads well, and he's someone that is quite good on the ball again, and someone that's really going to kick on with a better team, all due respect to Brentford. Got 19 goals without penalties in a Brentford side that isn't the best team out there. So with a better team now, with better players around him, he's going to develop well. This is his last big move, and he knows it. He's going to do everything he can to succeed at Newcastle, and he's going to do everything in his power to make sure we succeed as a football club. As far as signings go, over £250 million spent, but almost the perfect window. In terms of some negatives, I think the actual valuation of likes of Wissa was obviously high, but again, ownership was backed against the wall. I feel like deep down, if we have got Alexander Isak out a few weeks prior, if we had somehow been able to do that, then we could have got points this season. We could have sorted this out, and it wouldn't have affected the start of this season. I would have to say, our first few matches, the transfer window is heavily disrupted our performances. I have to say that's a downside. And as for our downsides, I have to say I guess the preparation going into the window itself, again, especially with the background noise, we know over the last couple of years, Paul Mitchell left, Dan Ashworth left, Amanda Murdoch left, and that's affected the Alexander Isak stance. It's affected a lot of things behind the scenes. So I wouldn't want to be too negative towards Newcastle, but it hasn't been a perfect window. I think mistakes have been made. We target likes of João Pedro, didn't get him leaned to that, and Bruno Cunha, he's a completely on the transfer list. Put bids on Trafford, bids on Ekitike, bids on Sesko. We spent so long for the striker situation. I have to say the striker situation, although it's been good in the end, been damaging during the window. It hasn't been good during the window, and it's dragged the Isak saga on, which in terms has affected the club in a negative light. If I had to give it a rating out of 10 now, the signing part of it, I've actually just rated the signings without any context. The signings are 10 out of 10. I actually think the players bought are 10 out of 10. But Isak striker situation and just the noise behind the transfer window dragged it down a little bit for me. 8 out of 10. I think it is a good window. I've seen people give it 5 out of 10. That's harsh. It is not an average window, by the way. That has actually been our most expensive transfer window of all time. Easily of all time. That's the most money we've ever spent in the transfer window. So to give it a 5 out of 10, I can't agree with that. It's definitely better than an average transfer window. I think it's been a good / very good window that's unfortunately been knocked back by some outside factors, but also self-inflicted factors as well. Could have easily been 10 out of 10, but just about very short. Just not quite been perfection. Have to say it's brilliant though. That's about as good as you can get in terms of income and signs. I can't wait, and I am delighted to see what's going to happen with these players this season. If you guys want me to anyway, we could actually make individual videos going through players in more analysis and more detail, just to explain why I feel like these players are going to kick on so well for Newcastle. But in terms of this video for now, about as good as it can get from Newcastle, just fell short of being a perfection window. Just wasn't quite perfect. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching anyway. Let me know your opinions down below. What would you rate the transfer window out of 10 if you had the chance to give it a rating now? Take care, and we'll be back with more Newcastle news videos very soon.